10 minutes from now, you will know the tricks for putting 24 hours back into your life. Now, I'm not talking about magic here. There's no hocus pocus going on whatsoever. However, I am talking about a little focus pocus. Let me explain that to you. A number of years, I was in a client's office meeting with him, going over some of the things we were working on. And right in the middle of that conversation, ping, off goes his new email alert. So he goes over, checks that out, comes back, we start our conversation again. A moment or two goes by, and ping, there goes that email alert again. Off he goes over to the email. And just as he's coming back to me, ring, ring, there goes the phone. So now it's ping, ring, Paul. Ping, ring, Paul. Next, people start stopping by the office, and he's got to shoo them away. I'm in a meeting, I'm in a meeting. So now we're up to ping, ring, Paul, shoo. Ping, ring, Paul, shoo. And just when I thought this symphony couldn't get any louder, the BlackBerry starts vibrating around the desk, and he's chasing it around. And I realized right then, we need to quiet down his space. We need to find ways for him to increase his focus so he can get more done and reduce the stress and pressure that he's feeling every single day. Well, I left his office, and I did a little quick math. Now, I'm a former lawyer, so math is a challenge for us. But do you know that if we increase our productivity by just 6 minutes a day, we'll get 24 more hours done this year over last year? That's 3 days. Imagine what it would feel like to have 3 days of work off your desk right now. Pretty good deal, right? So I started thinking about that, and that seed of an idea grew into the quiet spacing method, which is essentially a systematic way to effectively process everything that's coming at you all day long, while also reducing the interruptions and distractions that you're suffering. And over the last 7 or 8 years, I've trained thousands of people on quiet spacing, ways to implement those principles into their day-to-day world. And over all that time spent, I've gathered together a series of best practices, just tips and tricks that you can use right now, today, to start getting those 24 hours back in your life. So we're going to cover a few of those in a few minutes together this morning. So are you ready to put 6 minutes back into your day, 24 hours back into your life? Are you really ready? Now come on, we got other speakers coming up here. We need to get something going on. Is everybody ready to get 3 days back? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let's get started. Rule number 1. This one won't surprise anybody. Turn your new email alert off. Turn it off. This thing is killing you. And worse, it's self-inflicted. Right? Ping, ping. This thing is coming at you all day long, and it is riddling your focus. Another client story. Sitting in a client's office one day, working with her on getting her email set up to be a little more efficient. And as she is just getting ready to click on tools, because I've asked her to click on tools, ping, flash, up comes that new email alert. And I watch her head go down to that email, process that, come up, reprocess the instruction I had just given her, and click. I was counting in my head. 4 seconds. Yeah, it's not that long, right? 100 emails a day, 400 seconds. 400 seconds of activity with no productivity. That's over 6.5 minutes right there lost every single day. Well, Paul, you're saying, I've got to do my email, I've got to get to my email. Of course you do. But let's do it like we do our regular mail, old school style. Let's batch process it. Let's go back every 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever your job requires of you, and process through that email. You'll get through it more efficiently, and you're still being responsive. Tip number 1, turn your new email alert off. Tip number 2, do one thing at a time. Stanford University this January released a study that concluded what we all already know. We don't multitask very well. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is what's called switch costing. Every time you switch between tasks, it takes a moment to cycle up to the new task. The more you switch, the higher the cost. Okay? Now, you may not be willing to believe me. Who am I? You may not even be willing to believe Stanford. So we're going to do a little exercise right now together to demonstrate the effects of switch costing. I'd like everybody here to please close your eyes. Now, I want you to visualize my name, Paul, in your mind. Underneath my name, put 2 rows of dashes, 4 dashes in each row, kind of like hangman's noose. Now, when I say go, now for you overachievers, I haven't said go yet. When I say go, I want you to alternately spell out my name along the top row and switch down to counting out what the number each letter represents in my name on the bottom row. So for example, you will say P in the top row, go down and put a 1 in the bottom row. You'll say A on the top row, and you'll put a 2 in the bottom row. And when you're done, please open your eyes. Ready? Go. Okay, that took about 7 seconds for about half the room to open their eyes back up. 7 seconds to multitask. We were spelling and alternately counting. Spell, count, spell, count. Now, we're going to do the same exercise again, but we're going to change one rule. So please, if you would, close your eyes, set the exercise up in your mind's eye again the same way. Paul, with 2 rows of 4 dashes each below. This time, what I'd like you to do is spell my name out serially, P-A-U-L, and then go to the bottom row afterwards and count 1 to 4. Ready? Go. About 3 seconds. Took you 3 seconds to do 2 exercises, 1 at a time, as opposed to the same result, multitasking. That's the effects of switch costing. Rule number 2, do 1 thing at a time. Rule number 3, create a designated workspace. What I mean by that is find a space like the 4 corners of your desk that are easily defined. Clear everything off of that. I mean everything off of that. The kids, the monitor, the phone, the piles, the files, the stacks, pencils, everything off of that. I want this thing to look like a newborn conference room table. I want that thing to be pristine. And that's where we're going to place our 1 thing at a time when we're working on physical work. But why? Why, Paul? Peripheral vision. You see 120 degrees outside of what you're focusing on. And your brain is processing all of that information. And it's causing you to be slightly more distracted, slightly more stressed out. And by clearing that away, you get laser focused on your 1 thing. Final client story. So working with a client in his offices after I'd done a training that day. His name was Jeff. Jeff was nicely organized all around his desk. Nice, clean piles, teeny little workspace in the middle. You've all seen those, right? Put a pencil in there and that's about it, right? So he's in there working away. So I said, well, let's create a designated workspace, Jeff. And he said, great, let's do that. He's all fired up. He's been to the training, all of that. So I stand up and I start reaching for the first pile. Lesson learned. Never touch another guy's piles. So we got over that moment. And I took all of the piles and I placed them on the floor in front of his desk. Just right down in front of his desk, just out of sight. They were a foot away from where they used to live. Gave him a file and I asked him to work on it a little bit. And he did that and I sat in the chair, probably on my BlackBerry for a minute. And about 10 minutes went by and he started wrapping up the file. Closed everything up. I said, Jeff, how did that work for you? And he looked at me and he said, Paul, you know what? I haven't been that focused in 15 years. Rule number 3, create a designated workspace. So over the last few minutes together, we've talked about several things. We've quieted down your space by turning off your new email alerts. We've learned that batch processing our email is just as effective as doing them 1 at a time. In fact, we know that doing 1 thing at a time, especially in our designated workspace, is a more efficient way to process our work in a quieter space with higher focus. If you'll try these suggestions, you will put 6 minutes back in every day. And if you put 6 minutes back in every day over the next year, you will do 24 more hours of work. And that will leave you with just one question. What are you going to do with your 3 days? Thank you very much. In the back are the other 21 suggestions that go with this keynote. Please feel free to take them.